Hi, in this tutorial I will introduce Visual Studio and C#. So the contents of this tutorial, I will introduce you to Visual Studio, C# and the .NET platform. We will create a basic Windows desktop application. We will go through a basic code example step by step using the Windows Forms app template that are provided in Visual Studio. You will learn to use the Solution Explorer in Visual Studio, use the Toolbox, use the Designer to create a graphical user interface, set properties, create and use event handlers, create and use variables, use built-in methods in your code, create your own methods, and finally create your own class with methods. So basically this will give you the foundation for creating any kind of application using the Visual Studio programming environment and the C# programming language. So Visual Studio is an integrated development environment, shortened IDE from Microsoft. And with Visual Studio you can create different types of application. You can create desktop applications, web applications, mobile applications, etc. And you can also use different programming languages like C#, Visual Basic .NET, F#, etc. You can use Python also and other or C++ or other programming languages as well. But the C# programming language is the default option. And also Visual Studio comes in many different editions. You have the Professional Edition, Enterprise Edition, and also you have a free Community Edition. Here you see an overview of the Visual Studio programming environment. So here, this is the main surface where you have the designer and you create your graphical user interface. And then on the left side you have the toolbox. Here you can find buttons, text boxes, etc. that you just drag and drop to your designer here and your graphical user interface. Here on the right side you have the Solution Explorer where you have an overview of all your files. Here the form 1 is your graphical user interface, and you can have different code files, etc. here in your Solution Explorer. And then you basically just click on the different files and then they will pop up here in the main surface. In the bottom you have an error list if you happen to get some errors in your code, and of course you will get that, then these errors will pop up here in the error list. And finally here you have the properties windows. You can click on different objects here on your graphical user interface, like this text box, the button, or this label, and then you can set different properties for that object here in the property window. So as mentioned, you can use different types of programming languages with Visual Studio, but C# is the default option and probably the most used of the programming languages within the Visual Studio programming environment. So in this tutorial we will use C#, and also C# is a programming language developed by Microsoft, and it runs on top of the .NET platform from Microsoft. And C# is an object-oriented programming language, and probably C# is one of the most popular programming languages today. It's a very flexible language. You can use it in many different situations and you can create different types of applications. So with Visual Studio and C# you can create desktop applications, you can create web applications, you can create mobile applications, console applications, etc. And all that are integrated in the Visual Studio programming environment. So what's .NET? Basically, .NET is a free open source cross-platform application platform supported and created by Microsoft. So by using .NET in Visual Studio you can choose between different programming languages. You can use C#, Visual Basic .NET, F#, mainly these three languages, but probably C# is the most used and recommended .NET language today. So basically what is .NET? Basically .NET is just a huge code library hiding all the dirty work to make it easy for you to make different types of applications, either it's a desktop application, web application, mobile application, etc. So as mentioned, with Visual Studio and .NET and C# you can create all kind of applications, Windows application, desktop applications, web applications, mobile applications, etc. using the same tool or integrated development environment, namely Visual Studio, and the same programming language. In this case we will use C#. When it comes to desktop or Windows desktop application, you have also different choices that you can use in Visual Studio. You have so-called Windows Forms applications, you have VPF applications, you have Windows Store applications, etc. But Windows Forms applications are probably the most used alternative of these different alternatives, so that's the alternative that we will use in this video, and now soon we will provide a step-by-step example how you can create your own Windows Forms application from scratch. So let's create our own Windows Forms application from scratch. So we will create a basic Windows Forms application step by step from scratch. So you will learn to use the Toolbox, the designer, to create a user interface in Visual Studio. You will learn how to set properties. You will use event handlers or make event handlers. You will create and use variables. You will use built-in methods in your code. You will create your own method, and also finally you will create your own class with methods within. So basically these are all the necessary steps that you need to know about in order to create all kind of applications using Visual Studio and C#. So let's go to Visual Studio and start creating this application. So now I have started my Visual Studio, and this is the first window that pops up. Here you can open earlier applications that you have created, or here on the right side you can select create a new project. So I select this one, and then in the next window you need to choose a template for your new project, and you can use one of the previous templates that you have used here on the left side, or you can find your template here, and you can also search for your template here, or you can select templates for C# or Windows applications, desktop applications, etc. But here on the top we find a template that we're going to use, namely Windows Forms app. So this is a template for creating Windows desktop applications using the Windows Forms app template. And then this is for the C# programming language as well. So you just select this one and click next. And here you need to specify a name for your application or your project, a location. So then I just start with the location. I've just created a folder here on my computer, in a temporary folder called Temp Visual Studio. So this is the location where I want to put my application. So then I just select folder here, and this location pops up here, and then I can just specify a name for my application. You can call it whatever you like. WinForms App 1 is the default name. You can just change it to a Hello World application or something, and then just click next. And here you need to select the framework that you're going to use, the .NET framework I was talking about earlier. So then typically you just, if you don't have any specific reason, just select the newest .NET in the list here in the bottom. So the newest now is .NET 8, but next year it may be .NET 9, etc. So just select the newest version in the bottom, select this one and click create. And then this template will be created for you in the Visual Studio programming environment. So then the Visual Studio programming environment will pop up here with the toolbox here on the left side. Here you have the graphical user interface designer. Here you have the error list. Here you have the solution explorer where you have all your files. And here you have the property windows where you can set different properties for different objects that you find here on the toolbox, and just drag to your user interface. So let's just start by creating a very basic Hello World application. So then I just here in toolbar, I can either find what I'm looking for or search. So here I just want to have a text box. I can find a text box here, or you can just search for it, text, something like this, and then you'll find the text box, and then just drag it to your designer and your graphical user interface, and also you can make it bigger, smaller, etc. like this. So this is just an ordinary text box, and when you click on it, you will here in the properties window, so you will find lots of properties for that specific text box. You can specify a name. Typically this is the default name. Typically I just change it to txt. With the prefix txt, it means that it's a text box, and then name or something. This means that you should put your name here in this text box, and you have also lots of other properties that you can set, colors, background color, foreground color, whatever you like here in the properties windows. But so far I will just change the name to txt name like this. And now basically I can run my application. Click here on the run button. So either click on this one, or you can click on the small arrow and select this one. You can also go to debug here. You can click on build solution in order to build your solution, but typically that is not necessary, because when you click here run, the Visual Studio automatically build your application before it runs the application. Or you can click here on the debug, then you can just the same option here, start debugging, F5. So either click on this icon, click here, or just hit F5 in order to start your application. So then just click this one, and the application will start running. It takes a few seconds in order to compile the code and run the application like this. So then you have made your first Windows Forms desktop application. Consists of a window with a name, Form1. That's the default name. You can change it. I will show how you can change that name later. And a text box, and here you can type whatever you like, hello world or something, or your name, whatever. Basically this is the first example of a Windows desktop application. To stop the running application, you just click on this, you can click on this stop debugging, or you can just click here on this cross in the or close in the upper right corner. And then you're back in the Visual Studio environment, and then you can update your application. So now, so far we have created a text box. Let's also put in a button. So then you can just search for button, then you find the button here, or also you just find it here in the list. Here you find the button. Just you can either drag it like this, or you can just double click on it. If you want to put the button there, you can make the window a bit smaller to fit your user interface like this. Typically you also want to have a label on top here, so then you just find the label. You find it here, label, double click or just drag it, and then put it in the location where you want to have it, like this. So you can change the visible label here in the property window. So just click on it, and then here in the properties windows you have lots of properties, and here text label. Here I can enter a usual text label like this, and enter your name or something, click enter, and then you see this will be shown here. And also this, so now the text box is okay. We have already changed the property or the default name to txt name, and then you can do the same for the button. Click on the button, then you find default name, which is button1, and I can change it to btn prefix for button. And the purpose with this basic application, when you run application and enter your name here and click this button, your name should pop up in a message box. So then I can name it to button show name or something. So that's a good name for this button. And also typically you want to change the name that appears on the button. Instead of button 1, you typically want to have a proper name, so you find a property for that one here in the property window. So the default name is button 1, but you can change it to whatever you like. Click me or something, and then you see the appearance in the button will be click me. So now you have a text box, you have a button, and you have a label, and also you have the default name on your form or your window, form 1. But go to the properties windows, and then you see the name here, form 1. You can change it to hello world or whatever your application are doing, and then you see the title has changed to hello world like this. So basically now you have created your graphical user interface. So now you need to create the code that are executed when you click this button. And then when you click this button, first when you enter your name here and then click your button, then you should have a pop-up message just entering your name. So in order to do that, we just can double click on this button like this, and then we go to the code editor, and automatically an event handler has been created for us, and the name is button show name underscore click. This means when the user clicks on this button, this piece of code will be automatically executed. So let's create the code inside here to create a pop-up message that just says your name that you have entered here in the text box. So then I start by putting the name from this text box into a variable in C#. So then I can just specify a variable, string. So string is the data type. Since my name is a string, you have other types of variables, string, you have boolean, double, etc. for different types of use. But since I'm using a text box with a name inside, I just use the string variable. So then I just string name, that's the name of the variable. You can specify your own name for the different variables, but since I'm going to enter my name here, I just name my variable, in this case name, and then I set equal to, and then automatically you see that txt name.text pops up, and then you can just hit the tabulator like this. So basically now the name that the user enters here are now put into this variable called name like this. And next I want to use a built-in method, namely the message box. So then I just type message and find the message box here in the list, click enter, and then click dot, and then you have different methods for this message box, namely show. This means that when you use this method, a message box will just pop up in your graphical user interface. And then inside here I want to just type show the name, so then I just put the name inside like this. So basically this is all you need to do. Now you can just run your application, and then I can enter my name here, and then click this button, click me, and then you see a message pops up with my name inside like this. And then I can just click this one. I can click the button once more with my name. I can change my name to something else, and then the new name pops up here in the message box. Basically this is a simple Windows desktop application where you have created a graphical user interface with a text box, a button, a label, and you have created your own code that are executed when the user are clicking this button like this. So far we have created this application in Visual Studio and C#, basic Windows Forms application with a pop-up window that just pop up your name that you enter here in the text box. But I guess there are lots of improvements to be made in this application. I will do some minor improvements we have already done here. Changed the Windows title from Form 1 to something meaningful in the Properties window. So I have changed it to here. I have changed it to Hello World here in the title window. Another thing you can do is here you see you have minimize button, maximize button and close button. When you click on this maximize button you will get a large window, but the things inside or the stuff inside the graphical user interface will not be justified or adjusted to that size. So typically you just want to disable this maximize button. So you will do that in the property window. And also, if you haven't entered any name here in the text box, you typically want to disable this button and only make this available when you have entered a valid name here in the text box. So you also see how we can do that. Finally, we will also use if-else sentence for this to enable this button. So we want to disable this button when this text box is empty, and we want to enable it when you have entered a valid name inside here. And for that we use an if-else sentence. We can also see how we can use some built-in methods. So I will split my name into first name and the last name and show that in the pop-up window. Typically I will show a message here. Your first name is Hans Petter and your last name is Halvorsen. So then I will use a built-in method in order to solve that problem. Of course there are lots of other improvements to make as well, but let's just see how we can do these simple improvements. So let's make some improvements in our code. We have already changed the title to Hello World from the default Form 1. And next we want to, so now let me show you when I run this application now. When I click on this maximize window or icon, you see the application becomes like this, but typically you don't want to show all this blank information on your front or your graphical user interface. So I just want to disable it. So then I just click on the form and go to the property windows and then find the proper window to disable it. So then we have minimize box, we have maximize box here, which is true. So then I just set it to false and then run the application. And now you see this maximize icon has been disabled. I cannot click on it and only can just select minimize or close it. I can click minimize, so that's okay, and then I just find it here in the bottom here and open it again, or I can click the close like this. So that's some minor improvements. Now next, when this text box is empty, let's see how we can disable this button when it's empty and enable it when you have entered a valid name here. So in order to do that, we can create another event handler. So then on the text box, let's just double click on it, and then this event handler has been automatically created for the text box. So whenever the text inside this text box is changing, this piece of code will be automatically executed. So then I can start by creating a variable string name equal to this txt name dot text like this in order to put the name from the text box into a variable called name. Then I will just check or use an if else. So then if the name, and then I can just type dot, and then I will get a list of methods or properties I can use. And then I have a built-in method called length, and then the length of this name or text string that I put into the variable name is larger than 0, like this. Then I want to disable the button, so then the button show name dot, and then I have a property called enabled here, so I just use this one, and then I just set it to true. So when the length of this text box or string that you enter here is larger than 0, then the text box is enabled, while if it's less than 0, then I use an else, and then the button show name dot enable is set to false. So that's all basically. So then I can just run my application and see what's happening. So now, of course, we need to improve the code even more. So now I type it here, I remove it, and then you see when it's empty here now, this button has been disabled, and I cannot click on it. But when I enter something here, you can click on the button like this. But as you see, when I was starting my application, now this is empty, but I can click on it like this. So then when the application starts, I also need to set this button name enable to false. So then I can do that in this method called form1, because this piece of code is executed when the application starts. So then I can just set here button show dot enable equals to false. So let's see what's happening now. Now you see this has been disabled when I start the application. So now I can start entering something, and then I can click on the button. When I remove it, it goes back to disabled like this. Entering something, it's enabled. When it's empty, you cannot click on this button. So the next thing I want to do is to split my name into first name and last name, and then when I click this button, I will specify which is your first name and your last name. So then I go back to my code, and then here in the show name click event handler, I can just change the name here to full name. So then I will enter my full name here, and then I will copy that information into the variable called full name. And then I can use some built-in methods in order to split my full name into first name and last name. Then I can just create a new variable. I can call it subnames like this, and then use this full name dot and split. So then I can use this built-in split method in order to split my full name into first name and last name. So then I can just and since the separator between the last name and the first name and the last name will just be an empty space, and then I can just use like this. So basically, by using this split method, it will be my name will be split into two, an array of two elements. So the first element in this array will be my first name, and the second element in this array will be my last name. So then I can just do like this and create a string called first name, and then I just set it equal to subname 0, because in C# the first element in an array is indexed 0. So then I do the same. I just can copy it for the last name. I change it to last name, and then subname will be 1 like this. So basically, by using this split function method, I split my full name into an array of 2 elements. So the first element in the array will be the first name, which is subnames element or index 0, and the last name will then be subnames index 1. And then I can change or create string message that should be popped up in this message box. So then I can type something like this. So then full name, and so then I will first present the full name, and then I will present the first name and the last name. Then I can just show this message or put it into this message box show like this. So let's see what's happening now, and I run it. Then let's enter a name. Like this, click me, and then first I create the entire name, the first name and the last name. But let's just format the text a little bit better. Then I can type here hello, your first name is, and then I do like this, and here, and your last name is, and a plus here, like this. So basically now, first I type a string, hello your first name, and then I use the variable first name, and then a new string, and your last name is, and then I put in this other variable for the last name. So let's see how this is working. So I enter a valid name here, click the button, and then hello, your first name is Hans Petter and your last name is Halvorsen. So now I have improved my application. I have disabled this one, and this is empty. I have made a proper title and also made this message to the user more meaningful by using some built-in methods, etc., to separate my first name and my last name like this. So we have created the following application, a basic Hello World application or whatever you can call it, with a text box. You enter your name here and then click the button, and then a message box pops up with your last name and your with your first name and your last name. So I guess our application is finished and we have made some improvements, but let's make some final improvements by creating a separate method for some of the code. In that way we can reuse that part of the code in different scenarios or in different applications. Let's also create a separate class where you put that method inside. So let's see how we can do that. So basically we will update our application. So first we will create a separate method for some of part of the code, and when we have done that and tested the application, we will create a separate class that are separated from our application, and then we will put that method we have created inside that class, and then finally we will use that class and that method in our main application. So let's go to Visual Studio and update our application. So then we are back in Visual Studio, so let's start creating our method, but first I want to just remove all these white spaces from the code editor. So by removing those, you just go to Edit, Advanced, and then you have lots of options here. View white space, so I just click on this one in order to remove them, so then you don't see all these dots in your code. So now let's see how we can update the application and create a separate method. So here I want to create a separate method that are separating our full name into first name and last name. So that piece of code, I want to put that piece of code into a separate method. So let's just, here in the bottom, let's just start to create new method. So method or a function is just a separate piece of code that you can use other parts, use in other parts of your application. So then typically a method is like this. String, and that's first you specify the return value. In this case I want to return a message that should pop up here in the message box. So then first return value, specify the data type, and then the name of the function. And this function I'm going to split my full name into first name and last name. So I just name the function split full name or something, and then a parenthesis, and inside the parenthesis you need to specify the arguments, and the input argument to this function should be the full name, which is specified here. So then IntelliSense just suggests that should be the input argument. So then I just click the tabulator in order to finish the code like this. And then each method has these brackets like this, start bracket and an end bracket. So then basically I just take this piece of code, this piece of code, and just click Ctrl X in order to remove it from that part of the code and put it into my new method like this. So then as an input to the method is this full name, and then I want to split this full name into first name and last name, and then I want to create a message that should pop up in the message box here. So then this should be the return value from this method. So then I just, the last sentence here in this method should be return message like this. So now our method should be finished, and now I just need to use that method here in this button show underscore click event handler. So like this, split name, and then the output of this method should be message. So then message equal to the name of the function, and the input to this function should be this full name, which is an argument of the method like this. And of course you need to end with a semicolon like this. And finally I also need to of course specify this message as a variable like this. So string message like this, so string message. So then this variable will contain the message or the return value from this split full name method, and the input to this one is the full name that we found here from the text box, and then the return value will be this string where I have separated into first name and last name and written this message, hello your first name, and the variable, and your last name is this second variable last name. So now we have made a better structure in our application, but the behavior or the user interface of the application is the same. So this application should work in the same way as previously. So let's just run it to test the application. I just specify the name here, my first name and my last name, and I just click this button, and then you see the application works in the same manner, but now I have structured my code and created a separate method and used that method inside my application like this. So our final improvement in our application should be to make a separate class. So now we have made this method inside our main application, but assume we want to use this method in several parts of our application. We could have different forms. We know we have only one form, but we could have different forms that are doing different things in our application, and we want to reuse or use this function several places in our application. And then it's not a good practice to put it here in the same in the form one code part of the application. So then typically you want to create a separate class, and then you just click here on the project, then you click add, and here you have lots of options. One of the options is just to make a new class, and then you just select the class template, and then here you just specify the name of the class. Since this class is dealing with some person related stuff, I can just name the the class person or something, person.cs for C#. Click add, and a new file has been created here and in my Solution Explorer, namely person.cs. And here inside here I'm going to create this. So the class has been created automatically and named person, and then I just need to or want to move the code part, move this function that I have already created, this method that I have already created here. So I just start by copying it, put it into my person class like this. So basically that's all you need to do. You can change the type of class here. So now it's an internal class. You can change it to public if you want. So now this class person is a public class, and also this method inside here could be a public method like this. So basically now we just save it, go back to our form1.cs file, and now we can remove the method here like this. And the final step now is to use this method that are part of our person class. So then next step we need to do is to create an object of that class. So by since the name of the class is person, we just start by typing person, and then we need to specify a name for our object. Typically you just use person and then equals to new person like this. So basically this is how you create an instance of a specific class. And then so this is the name of the class, this is the variable or the instance name of this specific person class, and then new person is just here we just call the constructor of that class. In our case the constructor is non-existing because we don't need to have a constructor in this case. So just type this line of code, and then here where we are going to use the method we just need to specify the name of the object dot, and then the name of the class, name of the method like this. This line of code means that we now has created an instance or an object of that class, and inside that instance of that class we can use that split full name method that we have defined here inside the class. And now we can run our application. The graphical user interface and the behavior of the application should be the same, but now we have structured our code better, and we have put this method and we have created a separate class, so we can reuse that class and that method in other parts of our application. So just make sure to test the application to verify it works in the same manner. So here I specify name, I click on this button, and then I separate into first name and last name like this. So basically that's all. And here you see the entire code for your application. So this is the show name click event, which is this button. This code is text name underscore text change, which is this text box. When we change the contents of this one, we either enable or disable the button. And inside, when you click on this button, we are executing this split full name function that are separating our full name in first name and last name. So basically that's all you need to learn in order to create quite advanced applications in Visual Studio and in C#. And in our case, we have created a Windows Forms application, which is the most used type of application in Visual Studio. So let's summarize. We have used Visual Studio and C# and created a basic Windows desktop application. We have step by step done a code example by creating a Windows Forms application, and we have learned how to use Visual Studio. We have learned how to use the Solution Explorer, use the Toolbox, the Designer to create a graphical user interface. We have learned how to set properties either from the Properties window in the Designer or in code. We have created two different event handlers, one for the button and one for the text box. And we have created different types of variables. We have used some built-in methods in our code, and also we have created a separate method. And finally, we was creating a separate class where we was putting our method inside. So basically, this will give you a quite good foundation for creating all kind of application using Visual Studio and the C# programming language. Thank you and goodbye. See you next time. Bye bye.